Good afternoon from London. Just going to have a quick look over a couple of the markets ahead of the US session, potential areas of interest and potential trade ideas. Just taking a look at gold here, which following President's Day yesterday, obviously with the low volume, we've taken advantage of a bit of dollar weakness early hours to push to new high for the year. So the idea potentially here to continue that trend would be looking for a bit of a retracement down to what offered a good opportunity on the break high. So this morning, early hours, we had a break of a trend, and you can see we broke through, came back to retest it. Now we are quite far away from that point of interest, but should we get a retracement down and the conditions support it, not a bad area to find a bit of support for a potential move back up towards those highs that we're currently trading at. There are the R2 today, obviously from yesterday with the President's Day, so that rolling over could be a potential target should we have the momentum. But definitely an interesting point considering the overall trend of this market. Another one that interests me quite a bit, S&P. So we had a very quiet day yesterday on the electronic trade as expected. We've had a bit of a push lower this morning, and just on the terms of that sort of pattern, this trend line did break sort of early hours. You can see how many times it had been respected, so it wasn't really until sort of 9 o'clock that we finally broke through, and it's continued lower since then to again continue this overall trend, which is to the upside. I like the look of the pivot and around sort of 27.60. We've got quite an interesting area of support. Previously there on Friday was resistance on the 13th and 14th, so as a sort of zone, if you like, I quite like the look of it as a potential place to get open post obviously cash market open when the volatility starts to pick up. So it would be an area I'd be keeping an eye on as a potential buy. However, and obviously with the correlation of US equities, the Nasdaq has remained quite interesting above this trend line, which I'm about to put on. So if this was to go, that might be the indication that the long S&P at the pivot is not the right trade. So here you can see on the Nasdaq, we talked about this last week, but you've got your three tests of this point going back to the 29th of January. So if that was to go potentially post cash open, you might start to see a more aggressive move lower. So just bringing that closer down, you can see that would probably line up quite nicely with an area of support we had back on Friday as well. So if that was to go, the opportunity to get short on that might be a half decent opportunity. Again, the volatility of the cash open might dictate whether we do continue this overall trend higher or lower as well. Final market to have a look at here, you've got oil, and you can see I've got a horizontal line already marked up on this point. I think it's definitely an area of interest in the market that, along with gold and equities, has been pushing higher really since Boxing Day last year for a number of reasons. But for oil here, we've got an interesting area of support again from Friday, was previous resistance initially overnight Thursday, which I would quite like to see really come back and be retested. Also $55.50, so an interesting point there as well. I know we are probably about, well, literally $1 higher for now, but should we get a retracement, obviously you've got the increase in volume 2 p.m. UK time to take into consideration. But if we were to come back to this area, I think a good place to really continue the overall trend. One reason being that support resistance level, but also by the time it gets down, you probably would have the third test of this trend line here as well. So you've got the low of the 11th, you've got the low of the 14th, and it would mark up quite nicely potentially later on. So definitely points of interest to bear in mind. Gold looking for a bit of retracement to continue the overall trend, S&P around that pivot, the Nasdaq using that as a guide. So if that trend line was to go, you might then obviously not want to take the long S&P on, and oil would be looking for price to come a bit lower to get long and back up really towards what is the current low of the day, around $56 as well. Hope you all have a good trading session, and I'll be back this time tomorrow.